You might have heard the terms tog and thou, or maybe dual coat and single coat, but we don't often think how those things change how we treat the wool we produce. Hello shepherds, welcome back, and if you're new here, hello! This is where we talk all things sheepy. My name's Megan, and today I thought we could dip our toes in the complicated subject of primitive sheep's wool. There's a lot of terms that get thrown around. Some are breed specific and others are regional, so let's get into it. Oftentimes when the subject primitive or heritage sheep comes up, people like to talk about the hardiness of the breed, which includes special characteristics of their wool that help them stay warm in the winter or dry in really extreme weather patterns. But what exactly is it about their wool that's so different from other modern breeds? So when we think of sheep, what do you think of? Is it a merino with its wrinkly skin and cloud-like wool? Or a hair-like meat sheep, like a Dorper or Australian white? Those sheep have what's considered a single coat. So when you think of a dual coat, what comes to mind? Around these parts, I think the most well-known double-coated sheep's breed is the Icelandic. And to a lesser extent, we have some of our other northern European tail breeds, as well as the Navajo Choros from the Americas, the Skuden, a Nordic sheep breed, and a Karakul sheep from Central Asia, to name a few from each side of the pond. I have Shetlands, a heritage breed sheep, which are known for 3 main fleece subtypes, which impacts how they present their coat type. I'll dive into that further later on. So when we talk about primitive or heritage sheep, there's a lot going on. But speaking plainly, there are 3 types of wool fibers that you may find in a primitive breed sheep. Modern sheep breeds, like the merino we mentioned earlier, in contrast, have a very uniform wool. From top to bottom, their fleece is wool, which is a single fiber type or a single coat. In Icelandics, on the other hand, often their fleece comes in 2 types. So grab a random spot in their wool. In the same area, each lock of wool will have both a soft, downy undercoat, or thell, and the outer coat, the tog, which is more hair-like wool. It's also very long, there's soft waves, it's coarse, but a very strong fiber. There's also often a 3rd fiber type that can appear in several other primitive sheep breeds as well, and that's called the kemp. It's a coarse, brittle fiber that tends to be shorter than all the other fibers. And its main function is a sort of lofter to that undercoat that's so soft and crimped and really needs that little bit of air to trap that heat next to the sheep's body. If you want to train your eye to see the 2 coat characteristics, you might find it easier to start with a 2-toned colored fleece. Just make sure that it's actually a heritage breed sheep fleece. I've seen a lot of fake Icelandic fleeces that are single coated fleeces, but with the tips dyed black or another color to just do a sort of cheap imitation. And I think it can be really confusing to folks. If we sample some of our own sheep, you can see some of the difference from the influence of modern breed on the left and the tapering point from our heritage primitive breeds on the lock on the right. One of the easier ways to think of a dual coat is that you have 2 types of fleeces from one sheep. The coarser outer coat fibers are really sturdy, they're stiff, and they lack that bounce or memory of the soft inner wool, which makes them great for projects such as embroidery, your warp rugs, pots, as well as outerwear or areas that need that strength against wear. The inner coat, on the other hand, is often made of a shorter, softer, crimpier fiber that's really great for next to skin projects. And it has great memory as well. It also takes dye better, especially better than tog or kemp. When separating out the outer coat from the inner coat, it's similar to ruin in a sense, but usually done off the sheep. So with a light tug on either end of the coats, it should slide apart. And another great and cheap tool to do this is a comb. Now I know what you're thinking, there's no way that a comb is cheap, but if I find the link, I'll add it in the description. I have these onion slicers for a medium grade wool, and it was part of a DIY comb project that I did a few years ago. And I found that one set works really well for standard wool, but for the finer fleeces, I've had better luck at actually doubling them up and then gluing them together. Okay, so let's talk about the 3 fleece subtypes of Shetlands. I haven't seen this mentioned much with other breeds, so let me know in the comments what your experiences have been. With Shetlands, I've noticed that we have sub-regional names for the fleece types, as well as subtypes and international names. So let's go ahead and break them down. Shetlands, like other primitive breeds, have a lot of variety in their fleece. From head to toe, just like Icelandics, we have dual-coated fleece. But unlike the breed standard for Icelandics, there's a spectrum to this dual-coatedness, with specific terms for each of these coat qualities, which can add a lot of confusion. Regionally, we have colloquial words to describe the types of fleeces for the Shetlands. One of them is called English style, and if I recall correctly, the other style is Highland or primitive style, harking back to the heritage of the windswept Shetland Isles. Outside of this region, though, I've heard other terms as well to describe the 3 fleece subtypes of Shetlands, but the breed standard divided the fleece into 3 main groups, and that is kindly, long and wavy, and beaver. So the kindly coat is actually more of a single coated style. They don't have that dual coat as a hallmark, but as a heritage breed, they still have a lot of variation in their fleece from head to tail, with their finest wool near their neck and the coarser wool near their breech area. So depending on project, it may affect how you skirt and sort their wool. Even so, their wool is incredibly pillowy, soft, and downy, and it's usually very crimpy and dense. They rue really well too, and completely when timed right, so there's no need to shear. The downsides are that some folks find their staple length to be a bit harder to spin because it's typically ranging between 2 to 4 inches or 2 to 10 centimeters in length. And like most fine wools, their fleece has a tendency to be a magnet for trash or veggie matter, which is usually shortened to VM in most places if you see it. But usually all this veggie matter can be removed through combing more so than carding, especially during the fiber process and preparation. The kindly coats, or the single coat really, is more ideal for soft neck to skin garments or that really fine lace projects. Next up, we have our long and wavy coat. These are the classic Shetlands in our area and the most common fleece type. They're stunningly beautiful, and their fleece tends to be lower keep in terms of maintenance and slightly more resistant to veggie matter. Spinners tend to prefer their fleece lengths, which measure in between 4 to 6 inches or 10 to 15 centimeters, with little wisps on the end of each lock resembling almost a dual-coatedness. The fleece has a very open quality, so it's really floofy down near where the body needs that extra warmth, and the ends of each lock are really well closed to help provide that deep protection against all the weather elements. It really helps to flick them open when you're processing them too. Personally, on average, I find it a little itchy, but ruing rather than shearing really does help reduce that itchiness factor though. Sometimes when processing their fibers, I have found hemp fibers in this type of fleece, and I usually just compost them. There's not really much you can do with them, but you can dye them a little, and they're really great for these outerwear projects. So is the long and wavy subtype of fleece, is that a dual coat or a single coat? Well, some of the fleece in this category lean more towards single coat, and others are a little bit more dual coat. So there's a lot of variety in this subgroup. Our third coat subtype for our Shetlands is the beaver coat. So these Shetlands sport a truly double coat. They're a beautiful example of what's called a landrace or unimproved breed. Their fleece is magnificently long and dramatic and luxurious. They can be really hard to run across on the mainland here, but in other areas, they're easier to find. Their fleece lengths are usually running between 6 to 10 inches long or 15 to 25 centimeters plus, so quite long. Ideally, their double coat is really well defined, and just like our other dual-coated sheeps, they can be separated easily with a slight tug, with the outer coat acting more as a raincoat. It's hair-like and coarse, while the undercoat retains its super soft and pillowy, downy characteristics. The beaver coat does give you the most options in terms of projects for both outerwear and next to skin projects. And just like our other subtypes, we have our finer fleece around the neck for both the inner and outer coat, with the coarser fleece near the back end of the breech or back end section. So that's better for projects that need a little bit extra durability. Some folks prefer a uniform fleece from head to toe, lock to lock, But back in the days with small cottage industries, the wool-coated fleeces and the nature of how primitive or heritage breed sheep have that large range of fleece variations meant a wider range of products or options to work with. I know it can be really confusing with heritage breeds. The names evolved for each of the qualities of the respective breeds, and then there's regional, and then there's colloquialisms to describe the qualities. But there's a unifying factor that each of these breeds have, and usually it's that there's 2 or 3 types of fibers per fleece, so wool, hair, and hemp. And there can be some variation of how soft or fine a fleece is depending on the part of the sheep that the lock of wool came from. So I hope this helps take some of that mystery out of some of the heritage breed sheep. I love the history that's connected to each breed, and working through our sheep and processing that fiber is a way of connecting with our own history, which I think is pretty fun. How about you? What's the best part of a primitive breed sheep for you? If you've made it this far, an extra special thank you. I appreciate you. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you never miss a sheepy take. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ta-tas!